All right, so I had all my schooling in San Francisco. I loved growing up there. I wouldn't live there today. I don't mind living near it. I wouldn't live in that city. I mean, it's so changed. It was a big little town.
Yeah.
No freeways went through there.
Wow.
There was one highway, Bayshore, that went right through the city. But you had to get off the beaten path to follow it, and without freeways. And you could go downtown, and you could park downtown. And we didn't have a car until my later life.
Wow.
And my family grew up in the Depression. So we grew up, very poor and very, very appreciative of what we had. And we made do. And my mother was an absolute saint. And my father was too, but then they split up. And so my mom's left with 5 children. I'm the youngest and the only one left.
Wow.
Just lost my last brother this past fall.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And he was my inspiration, my mentor, my counselor, my guide, my conscience. And I ran everything by him and followed his footsteps.
Were you close in age too then?
No, actually he was 7, so he was 7 years older. And so I followed his path. And he was my hero. And so we grew up there very poor, like I say, very appreciative. We shared with neighbors, and I had aunts and uncles. I grew up in the Mission, and we walked everywhere. We'd walk 5 miles to go to a movie.
Wow.
And think nothing of it. And but if we had a car, you could park anywhere you want in the city. That wasn't an issue.
It wasn't as touristy back then.
When you went downtown to the city, people dressed up. Men wore fedora hats and ties and everything. My mother, to go downtown, she wore a hat, a long coat, a dress, gloves, usually that matched her outfit. And that's the way you did. When you were going to go to a movie downtown, you got dressed up. At least a sport shirt and a sweater, a pair of slacks, and it was a special deal. And we just loved growing up there. It was just a fun place to do. There were fun diversions. There was out at the zoo. There was a pool that was, without exaggeration, about 3 or 4 city blocks long.
Wow.
It's called Fleischacker Pool. It was right next to the San Francisco Zoo out by the beach. And that was a real treat to go there. And you know where the Cliff House is in the city?
I'm not familiar enough yet.
Well, you'll I'm sure in your stay here in Santa Clara, you'll go to the Cliff House. And if you are outside the Cliff House and you look up towards the hill, you'll see a cliff that has some kind of ruins. That was called Sutro Baths. And Sutro Baths was a glassed-in public pool with about 7 or 8 pools. And some were warmer than others, some were fresh water, some were ocean water. And it had slides. You could slide into a pool. It had rings where you could jump off and go down into it. It was a real trip. And we used to go there. That was a special treat to get to go to Sutros. Right down from Sutros, right on, almost on the water, was Playland at the beach. And it was in a giant amusement park. And it had fun and games and a fun house, and it had rides and a kind of a roller coaster and had all the diversions you would want. And a string of, out on the street side of it, a string of wonderful restaurants.
Mm.
You know, not fancy or anything, but just good,
Yeah.
good stuff. And that was a special treat to get to go to Playland.
Mm-hmm.
And we took buses, streetcars, everywhere we went.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody seemed to know the bus system and the train system, and you could buy at a little discount rate a car ticket.
Oh, okay.
And it was good on the card, on the bus or the streetcar. And they were like 10 rides for 50 cents.
Wow.
If you can imagine that.
I can't.
10 rides for 50 cents. And then there were times when you saved sometimes we'd save the 50 cents and then our mother gave us the car ticket and we'd use it for frivolous things like candy and gum and stuff like that. And then we'd sneak on the streetcars. I mean, this is how far back it goes. The streetcars had cow catchers on either ends, and it was because some of San Francisco was very rural when I
Really?
grew up. Yeah, and sometimes there would be a cow crossing, so as not to cream
Mm-hmm.
the herd of cattle, these cow casters, they would stick down like that. They were black grates, and they would move along, and they would just nudge the cows, and they would keep going, and then the cows would finally get it, and they would part
Yeah.
to get out of the way. And there was no malice.
Yeah.
That was just what you did. You slowed down. You knew you were slowing down because there were some cows.
You just kind of scooched them.
Yeah. But that led the cow catcher was twofold. And kids like me, little devious little kids, when you didn't have car fare, you jump on the
Oh.
cow catchers. And the window was up here, and the cow catcher
So
was
no one
on here, and
noticed
you go
you?
like this. Sometimes they knew, you know. Sometimes, hey, get off right there, you kid, you know. Sometimes you get a mean one, but more than likely they'd let you do it because they know that everybody was on tough times.
Right.
And but it was adventurous and it was fun,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And just San Francisco was an absolute joy.
And would you usually go like with your siblings or school friends, or
I'm sorry?
would you usually like go around the city with your family and your siblings, or your school
Well,
friends, or a
yeah,
mix?
friends. And as I grew, I picked up a fondness for baseball.
Yeah, I see you have your baseball shirt.
Well,
on today.
the coach that was there a few years back,
At Santa Clara?
yeah, Mark O'Brien, they replaced him with another O'Brien.
Oh.
But he was my counselee. I was a counselor eventually at De Anza College,
Oh, okay.
community college in Cupertino.
Uh-huh.
And so he gave me this shirt.
Very cool.
So I've always followed Santa Clara and Stanford,
Mm-hmm.
San Jose State. And but growing up, my thing was baseball. It got me to know most of the people in my life, you know. In fact, my kids can't believe that somebody will say, hey, Jimmy, you remember me? I played baseball at Portland. And I just, all over the place, I had friends. And baseball was, you know, just my life. And
Yeah.
it was a fun diversion. And San Francisco, as I said, was a fun city. Nobody had a key.
Really?
We never locked our doors.
Really?
Really. And that's unfathomable today. And everybody has a key. You don't leave the house unless everything is locked.
Right, especially in the city.
And, you know, there was honesty. Like we had a grocer down the corner. It was about 6, 7 houses from me on the other side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother would be making lunch in the morning. And she'd say, Jimmy, run down to Odiard's. I'm out of bread. And I said, but it's closed. And see, in this back alley, and you could open a door and walk into the back alley. There was a bread bin.
Wow.
Great big bread bin, probably as big as that.
Wow.
And it had a roof type door, and you pick up the door. And so I'd get a loaf of bread.
You could just grab it?
Just grab it.
Wow.
Just take it out of there before the store opened.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Odiard wasn't there yet. So after school, my mother would give me a dime. That bought a loaf of bread,
Wow.
10 or 12 cents. Said, now go tell Mr. Odiard that your mother sent you down to get a loaf of bread.
Mm-hmm.
And he would pat you on the head, rub you on the head, and then he'd say, okay, Jimmy, give you a little teeny bag, a little paper bag, about this big, and you'd say, take a handful of cattle candies.
Oh.
And you'd go in there and you'd pick a few of those. Oh, come on, you can pick a few more.
That's so nice.
And, and they'd send you home with this little bag of candy.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just happy as a clam.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it was just, you'd go to and right across the street was the butcher.
Mm-hmm.
And your mother would go in there to buy something. You'd be with him. He'd give you a hot dog or a piece of bologna or a piece of salami or something like that. They always give the children something. You went to the bakery. And you love to go to the bakery with your mother because say, okay, pick out a cookie, Jimmy. And so you'd look in there and, oh my God. And I invariably took the sugar cookie. But that was just how it was. Everybody was friendly, nice, honest. It was just fun living, And we'd have people deliver stuff to your door. Like sometimes a milkman would come. Nobody would ever take your milk. If your door was open, he'd leave it inside.
Wow.
And we had the Iceman. We didn't have a refrigerator. We had what they call an ice box.
So it's like
and
a cooler.
The upper level of the ice box was about yay big and about 2 feet by 4 feet. And the Iceman would come with an ice truck. And it was fascinating to see, especially to the eyes of a little kid. He had a hook that he always kept on his shoulder, kind of hooked around like this, and he had a hook. And he'd take that hook and he'd grab a cube of ice, about that big, and he'd bring it. Oftentimes we weren't home, but we knew that we needed ice, and we'd pay for it at the end of the week or end of the month. I don't know how they did it, but it was almost nothing. It was pennies for the ice, and you put it in your ice box, and then leave. You'd come home, you'd have your fresh ice.
Wow.
I mean, it was a joy.
What an honorable little community it sounds like you lived in.
And then on that same block, there was a donut store. And right next to Odiard's. In fact, it backed up to Odiard's, and it had a little, and next to Odiard's was a bakery, but they both shared kind of an alley. You'd go in the alley, and you'd look down into the bakery, and you'd watch the bakers baking. And we'd go ask them, hey, you got any cripples? We used to call the ones that
messed up.
We called them cripples. Got any cripples? And sometimes they'd have a half a donut, and you're glad to get it. And they'd
just toss
flip it up to you
yeah.
and catch it, Or sometimes you get one that was in pretty good shape, or half of a sweet roll or something. Got any cripples? And sometimes you'd say, nah, get out of here. We don't have anything today. And but that was a nice little tradition to have. I could still see those guys who, with their T-shirts, and it was hot down there in the bakery, and they had short sleeve, almost like undershirts, and working in the bakery, and Sometimes we were the last thing they wanted to see, but most of the time they were really good about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fun tradition. And then I got into my brother, as I say, was my inspiration.
And what was his name?
Vince.
Vince.
Vince was my older brother, and he was just a neat guy, and he always took me under his wing, always had time for me. And so I began to take an interest because he took an interest in baseball.
Mm.
And then he used to help me, and then I'd get to be the bat boy sometime. And he played with the big guys.
Was it with like a school team that he played?
It was a neighborhood team.
Okay.
It was called, it was a recreation house, a community recreation center. It was called Presida Valley. It was in the Mission. We lived at the foot of Bernal Heights.
Okay.
And it was just a beautiful hill, a set of rolling hills that rolled down, and our house kind of fed into it. And we'd go up there and with a cardboard box, we'd slide down the hills. I can always remember that, we'd go way up the top, you'd slide down, do it 52 times.
Did anyone ever wipe out?
Right. Oh, yeah, of course. And we'd fly kites up there and so on. But getting back to Presida Valley, everybody seemed to do the recreation. They had woodworking there. They had movies that you could see for 2 or 3 cents, and or 5 cents. You could see movies on a Friday afternoon, and it was a big deal for us. And they had woodworking classes and artwork, and then they had little teams. So my brother was old enough to play on the baseball team. And that's how I started to get hooked on it.
And how old were you about that?
I was 5, 6.
Okay, so pretty early.
7, yeah. And then my brother used to spend time with me teaching me how to play. And he had a good system. He used to, there'd be a concrete wall down at the park, and he'd put me with a bat and he'd throw tennis balls. And he'd throw them quite hard. And, at first I would complain, but he'd throw them too hard. He said, Jimmy, you have to learn how to hit a fastball. He said, they're not going to float them up to you. When you get to play baseball, they're going to try and zing them by you.
Right.
And you got to be ready. So it worked. And after a while, I could punch the little tennis balls. So when I got into baseball, I attributed a lot of it to him. I was a good hitter, and the fastball, a lot of kids were afraid of good fastballs.
But you weren't scared of it, yeah.
I liked to hit a fastball because I knew I could do it. And and then baseball was a lifelong thing to me. I started playing it in organized baseball about, I want to say about 9 when I got on my first team. And I played some form or other of baseball till I was 70.
Wow.
Can you believe that? I played
lifelong indeed.
Baseball, and I played in junior high, high school, college. When I got out of college, coach got us a deal, asked if we wanted to go away and get paid for playing baseball.
So pro.
Having a job. So,
Yes, please, yeah.
And he said, we need some infielders. My hand was the first one up there. So 3 or 4 of us went away, and we went away to play ball for a couple of summers. And the town that we played for, they got us a job in the sawmill, and we all had different jobs. And then we played baseball at nights and on the weekends. And we played for the town team. And it was a small town. The whole darn town came out to see you play baseball. And they bet They had bets, and I mean, there was even fights in the stands.
Really?
Yeah. It was very competitive, and some of the guys would have too many beers, and they'd bet, and they'd get in an argument about a stupid bet or something, you know, and they'd stop, and everybody would look up in the stands, and all right, come on, let's play ball, you know. So that was fun. It was way up in Northern California.
Okay.
And that were some of the most fun years that I had in my entire life.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
Yeah. And then I started playing organized light. I went through every level. And then I played it a little bit at SF State. And go back to junior high, I was playing baseball. This is my brother. First made a huge impact on me. I was screwing around, and I was a little devil. And I was even cutting classes and having a good time. I had a friend that had a little money, and he'd take me downtown. We'd go downtown on the streetcar, and we'd watch movies all day. Cartoons and cowboy movies, and one thing, they had places where they had all-day movies. So we'd take our lunch from the house and
pack it.
And we'd cut school and go down there. And then I got caught in a big way. Because we used to write each other notes. We were quite skillful at copying our parents.
Oh.
You know, and we
Forging.
write notes, and the reason why we weren't at school and so on. And it worked fine until one day I had a number of absences, and the health department said, you know, we're worried about this kid. He might have a health issue.
Oh.
And so you better go check on him. So the health department came out.
To your house?
To my house. And they found out that I wasn't living there. I had moved and from the junior high where I was to another area.
Oh.
Up in Hunters Point. And I had moved, and I just kept going to Portland. It was about 3 or 4 mile walk or 3 buses to get there.
Wow.
Half time we'd walk and just get up early. Didn't mind getting up early.
How early were you getting up?
And 6 o'clock.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yeah.
6:30, and to be at school at 8 o'clock. You know, you'd have your breakfast, get dressed, and then walk 3 or 4 miles. You thought nothing of it. And so the health department, the school called me in, and it said, Jimmy, you know, we were concerned about you because of the excessive absences that you've had. And the Department of Health went out to your house, and guess what we found? That you weren't living in the house that we have on file. And said, you no doubt moved. And I said, yes, I did. And they said, where did you move to? And I told them. And they said, you know, you're no longer in our district.
Oh.
And, you know, you've had such a spotty record and everything. And I hate to tell you this, but we're going to have to ask you to go to the school that's in your district.
Wow.
And I was shattered.
Yeah.
I was brokenhearted.
Because all your friends were there,
all
right?
My friends, girlfriends. I was at the age where I was starting to get girlfriends. And
your
all
team,
my buddies
too, right?
And my team and all of that. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Really?
And it was at the end of eighth. In those days, 7, 8, and 9 were junior high.
Oh, okay.
And then 10, 11, and 12 was high school.
High school. Mm-hmm.
Typically. And so I was finished the 8th grade, so I went to at the end of the 9th grade, they said, you need to look around for a new school because starting next fall, and then they gave me 2 options. Mm-hmm. So I went to one and I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
And I spent a day there visiting, and I just
didn't fit.
Didn't like it. And then I went to another one. Ironically, where my brother and sister had gone. And I knew some friends from playing ball against them and so on, so I had a connection. And they said, oh, Jimmy, you're coming here. Oh, you can play ball for us. And all. Jeez. And then my friend Joey, he introduced me to people. And so, oh, God, you got to come here. Oh, you got to come here. So I did. So in the meantime, my big brother Vince, my counselor, mentor, grabbed a hold of me and said, we got to have a talk. And he took me out and bought me a Coke and a fountain. And he said, you paid for what you've been doing. He said, you've been screwing around. He said, you haven't been a serious student. You're not stupid. He said, you proved before that you could get good grades when you wanted to. You were just not knuckling down. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be, my coaches, and there were the park directors who turned out, many of them, to be our coaches. I said, I want to be a coach. And he said, you know what it takes to be a coach? And I said, not really. And he said, well, guess what? You have to study. You have to study hard. And he said, because you don't go to college, you go to college to learn to be a coach and a teacher. He said, but you have to learn to be a teacher along with a coach. And it's not fun and games. You don't just do sports.
Right.
It said you have to take science and math and English and history and social studies and humanities. And he said that in order to do that, you have to knuckle down and you have to study. He said, are you serious about being a coach? I said, yeah. You want to go to college? I said, yes. And so he said, well, you're going to have to turn over a new leaf. And he said, your studies come first, baseball and the babes come second. Because I was a little girl chaser. I chased fly balls, but I also chased the little skirts going around. And he said, you got to put the books first. And he said, you could do it. So, and he had this long, and he wasn't just scolding me, he was counseling me in a very loving, meaningful way. And it hit home. That year, I got straight A's, and except for typing. And I think I got a C in typing because I was paying more attention to the girls than I was the typewriter. Most girls took typing.
Right.
And my counselor suggested it would be good to learn typing. If down the road you want to go to college,
right.
I would be over here
fingers
like
moving, but you're looking around.
So I didn't do very well in typing. And but all the rest of the subjects, I got straight A's.
Wow.
So I went into college with that. And he was so proud of me. He said, see, you can do it. See, you can do the academic part of it, and that's what's going to take. So you got to keep that up because it'll be a little harder at Mission. That's the high school. And it'll be a little harder, but nothing that you won't be able to keep up with. And if you keep your nose primarily in the books. Yeah, you can play baseball, but you have to put your books first, and you have to study, like on your weekends when you're not playing baseball, at nights when you're not playing baseball. And so I did. It was one of the best things. I went to high school, and I did very, very well. And I majored in Spanish, and I had some background at home.
Mm-hmm.
My heritage is Spanish speaking.
Oh, okay.
And so I was very good at it, and very interested in it, although I didn't pursue it much when I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I went on to college, and I struggled a little bit in the beginning.
This is at San
And my
Francisco.
coach was also my mentor.
Okay.
And I said, I'm getting afraid of going to college.
Mm.
And he was a coach, and he was a counselor at the school.
Mm.
And he said, Jimmy, don't even think about it. You're going to go to college. And I said, well, I don't, I'm not so sure I can do it. He said, I'm finding it hard admission. He said, but you're proving you can do it. And he said, and you're going to be able to do it in college.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I guarantee you. And so when it came time, he called me in his office. He goes, I want you to go through this. I'm going to sit down with you. I said, what is this? He said, this is that application to SF State. And God, I got only nervous. And I said, oh, my goodness. He said, yes, come on, we'll do it together. Questions you can't answer, I'll help you.
Oh.
So he said, and I'll deliver this for you. And so he did. And I was worried about the entrance test.
Mm-hmm.
They had it really wasn't an entrance test. It was a placement test. And to determine what you can handle and what not. But you did have to achieve a certain level
right.
to get in, and I was sure I wasn't going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And so I passed. I got my letter, and the first thing I did, I got it to my brother. Congratulations, you accepted to San Francisco State. It wasn't a university then, just San Francisco State.
Mm-hmm.
And he was proud of me, and I took it to my coach, and I said, thank you. Look what I got in the mail, And so he said, now knuckle down. You can play baseball at that level. And he said, but I want you to pay attention to the books.
Right.
And so I found it we graduated also at mid-year in those days. You were a low 10 when you were 10th grade and a high 10, because mid-year you changed. Then you went to different classes. Now you were a high 10, a little higher level. And then you were a high 10, low 11, high 11. And so I went in there, and at mid-year, and a friend of mine that I played ball with, and his story paralleled mine about going to SF State. We were best buddies, and we were scared to death. And we went into this English class, and the guy gives us a topic to write down. He said, now I want you to write a 1,500-word theme by Wednesday, next class. And then he named the topic. And I said, what did he mean by this? And he goes, what's a theme? Really, we didn't call them themes.
Right.
A report or a paper or something. A theme,
So you immediately felt like you were in over your head.
Yeah. Oh my God. He said, I don't know what the topic is, and you don't know what the theme is. And we asked somebody, some older students, kind of for a little help on the topic and everything. So we struggled. And then my mother had been divorced, and she was very ill.
Mm-hmm.
She was devastated by this divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And it was her second marriage. And because I got divorced from my father when I was like 11.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an absolute saint in
Mm-hmm.
raising us. And that's where I learned all my values.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, she had a nervous breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
and she was in a bad way. And the pastor of the church that she was going to took her under his wing, and he had been moved to Portland,
Mm-hmm.
and Portland, Oregon, and got her a job, got her a place to live with a lady, a sweet little old lady, and had a wonderful Victorian place, and she had
Sounds lovely.
an extra room, and she was just a sweet old lady, white-haired, and little granny glasses, and so my mother, I could spot in my mother how lonely she was, how much she missed home, and
Because she was away from you all then in Portland, right?
Huh?
Because she was in Portland, so she was away from you.
Yeah,
all.
she was away from family. And so I kind of felt sorry for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I, coupled with the fact I was doing lousy,
Mm.
so I left SF State
Oh, really?
midstream. And I didn't tell anybody I was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So I left behind a string of F's and incompletes.
Wow.
And so I didn't know it at the time. I didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went away and then up to Portland, and then I couldn't get a job up there. I tried, and I did a few odd jobs like sitting pins at a bowling alley. Now it's all automated.
Right.
At the time, I used to have kids behind there setting the pins
Wow.
when they're knocked down,
Mm-hmm.
and did little odd jobs. And then baseball team contacted me, and they wanted me to come down and play ball again.
Oh.
And so I did. And I said, yeah, they can get me a job and I'll play ball. And so I stayed up there till spring, and then went away to play ball. And then I came back, and I worked in San Francisco for a while to just get my feet on the ground. And then the Army thing came into play.
All right.
They were drafting,
Mm-hmm.
or you could volunteer for the draft. And I had heard that fall that they were going to do away with the GI Bill, which paid for college education for veterans.
Right.
And I said, God, I really want to get that.
Yeah.
So I went down to the draft board. I said, if I volunteer for the draft, and they said, it's going to be going away the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can you put me in before then? I said, if you get in before then, you can get the GI Bill. So I said, when can you put me in? They said, how about the 7th of January?